Hey, it's Jen here, and I just wanted to show you how to use some of the kinetic dies. And I've had many requests for information on how I made this card using the Whimsy Space Dragon right here and the moon. And so I thought I would recreate this for you using some of the dies so that you can see how they work. As you can see, the Space Dragon just flies across the sky magically with a no-see kinetic. So we are going to get started on this, and if you have any questions, just make sure to leave comments and I will try to answer them for you. And all the products I use will be in the links below. Okay, so for this Space Dragon, I used this clear set, and this is called A Boy's Dream, and you can find it on Whimsy. I also used the moon background, and then I used the actual Space Dragon, which comes in rubber, and this is him all colored up. So we are going to go ahead and talk about a little bit about the kinetic sets. So here, right here, we have the Kinetic Curve Basics die set. Runs about $16.99. It comes with 3 of the openings, the slides, which can also be used. You can use the center part or the outer part because of the stitches. You don't have to have any stamp sets for this. You can just use it as is and use this as a border that you hide this behind or on top of. And then these are the little circle pieces that you use to slide in the tracks. So this is really just replacing the penny for the penny sliders or the dimes, depending on what you've used in the past. So for this card, we're going to use the medium-sized one, and we will use that piece. The other set is the No-See Kinetics Basic die set, and in this set, you get these 4 pieces. I call this one the dangle, or you can use it as a tag. Here's those slider pieces. Now this piece right here is the important piece that brings the object up and over. Okay, so if you look really closely on it, you can see that it has lines in it, and that just gives you different portions that you can fold to go up and over an object. If you want it to be further away from the object, you just go ahead and use the second score line. So it's like that. So when you have an object, let's say the moon, it's coming up and over the moon. Okay. So this piece, if you remove it, this piece is actually attached to the little circle pieces that are running in the groove. And then this piece right here would be your pull piece. And the reason that we have dots, openings, punch outs in the pull piece is because you might want to be only pulling that far. You can cut off the excess. Maybe you need the full extension if you're doing an A2 horizontal. So you might need this one. So it just gives you some options. This piece right here gives you the opportunity to extend the no-see by putting one of the sliders in it, and then you can put a cutout piece of this, and then you put a second on top, and then it leaves it so it can dangle. Okay, obviously you wouldn't use this piece. Let me see if I can find the piece that I actually made for it. So that piece, and then the dangle, and this is double stick foam tape, and you would put this top piece on it, and then it leaves it to freely swing. Okay, so we're not going to be using this piece for this card, but that is what that piece is for. Okay, so for this card, we will use the pull, the no-see, we will use some of the circles, and we will use the slider. Okay, I'm going to set those aside. See if I can stay semi-organized with all these pieces. So for this piece, I actually created a background, and I did it on glossy cardstock, but you can use any pattern paper for this. I airbrushed it, nothing fancy, until I take This is airbrushed on glossy, and then I take some rubbing alcohol and I go ahead and give it a couple spritzes. And by doing that, you can see that it is starting to marble. Okay, it will quickly dry and then I can use that piece. But with the magic that we have going on these days, here is the finished piece. Now this piece would go like that. Okay, now we want to make it where the moon is on the card, but we want this to fly up above it. In the past, what we would have done is we would probably put the groove in here or the groove up here, and you would see the groove that the slider goes in all the way across the card. Well, that always drove me crazy. I always wanted to have the action without being able to see the mechanisms. So that's why we came up with the no-see. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna take this card, piece of cardstock, and we are gonna take this piece, and in the shape of the moon, we're gonna go ahead and put it on here and run it through the die machine. Now, keep in mind, when you're doing this, you need to be able to have this piece running this way. So you do not want to put anything up here that is going to block the movement, okay? Also, you're going to have this piece as the pull. So you do not want to have anything blocking this area. So when you put that on here, keep in mind that you need to be able to place your foam tape so that it doesn't impair the movement. So I'm going to go ahead and run this through my machine. And that's what you have. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to build up from there. I'm going to go ahead and take a white piece. Now, obviously, if I wasn't doing this on camera, I would probably airbrush this piece, make it match, all that kind of stuff. But we just want to show you exactly how we do that card. So, changed my mind on that. We're going to go ahead and do it. So the one that I airbrushed before, I went ahead and ran it through the machine. Give it a light tap, and there's our piece. Okay. Now this piece is going to be completely covered. So this was the other piece that I cut out with the lines. Now a couple things to take note. Okay, we've got one circle. I used a 1/4 inch little foam squares. They're 3D foam squares. These ones right here are by Scrapbook Adhesive. Comes in 2 different sizes, but we want the 1/4 inch. You can also use a 1/4 inch hole punch on your normal just flat foam, and it'll work just the same. So we're gonna go ahead and take this and we're gonna lay it here just for reference. We know it's going to stick out, needs to stick out the side of the card, but it also needs to reach all the way over here. So with that being said, it looks like I will use the second to the end hole. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. I'm going to remove the tape. I'm going to take a second one that I already had ready, and I'm going to place it on top. Now, one circle, it's going to have a hard time staying straight, and I don't want the wobble in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a second piece of this foam, and if you don't mind the wobble, you don't need 2 pieces, but I'm going to go ahead and just slip it in here, in between, remove the foam protectant, and that way, now I've got something that will run in a groove, but it will not wobble, okay, because it's got 2 pieces. Now, this piece will go underneath, And I'll go ahead, before I adhere this down to the paper, I'll go ahead and just set it in there. Okay, do you see the track that it's going on? Now this would be covered, and it'll come out the side. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and flip it over, and I'm going to add some foam tape. So for this one, I've actually taken my foam tape and made it a little skinnier. And for those of you who don't like to waste foam tape, you don't have to put it all the way across. Depends on how much of a hurry you're in. I doubled up this foam tape, by the way. Now remember what I said about the top portion? We need to be able to run something by it. So in order to keep this stable, I'm going to cut off that end. I'm going to put it there. Nothing to keep it stable here, except for right here I can put some. And let's see how it runs. I might have to move that tape. Goes up and down. So you see how this was starting to aim down? It was because it was hitting this piece. So I'm going to attempt to move it. So that's the highest spot right there. So the next piece I won't put so close. And let's just move that up. All right, there we go. And because I want to keep it straight, I'm going to stabilize it just a little bit more. I'm going to put some there. All right, so now when we flip it over, it will stay in that groove. Okay, so now we've got the top portion of the card here. We're going to go ahead and stabilize that as well. Because remember, this is going down onto your card base. Okay, so it's the front portion right here that you want to keep clear. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's put it down on some colored cardstock. How about that? So we'll go ahead and peel all this up. Still moves, so we're in good shape. All right, so the next step that we need to do, remember this is going to be going over it. Now I can move it down if I want to give more space, or I can move it up to give more moon. Just depends on how I want it to run. Now this piece that I showed you prior, thought I might have an, oh, there it is. So this piece right here, we can go ahead and use regular adhesive, glue dots, but I'm going to go ahead and just put some of my favorite Nuvo adhesive on there and glue it down. Okay, so while that's drying, I can lay out the rest of my card. Here's my card base, just so you can see kind of how it's coming together. Okay, so now this piece is going to go on top, and I think that I'm going to cut off just a tiny bit so it's not all moon. So I just cut a 1/4 inch off, and it's going to look like this. Now I'm going to go ahead and pop this up. Now remember, when I said we're going to pop it up, remember now we don't have to worry about this mechanism because it's underneath. Now, could you put it up on top? Absolutely, you can put it up on top. It just, you have to remember to leave that open space so when you pull it, the adhesive, the foam tape isn't blocking it. So I'm going to only have to worry about the top sliding portion. Okay, so why don't I put some adhesive? Now I'm using double foam tape. You can use a single layer, And this is just what I had on hand. So we already know on this side, we don't care. That's not going to be blocked by anything, right? We know the bottom portion, we can go ahead and cover. Okay. So far so good. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some right here for stability. We got to make sure I don't go too far up because you want your adhesive to show. So it looks like I have room to put some more up here. And that's just actually just making this piece sturdy. We don't want a flimsy card, especially when someone gets a hold of it and has too much fun sliding this back and forth. Okay, so I just put a little piece here knowing that I have room there. So now I can go ahead and pull these pieces off. So really it's just positioning the slider in the right spot, and then when you put on the adhesive, not blocking the mechanisms. So I'm going to carefully put that down, and do you see it's still working? This is always a good thing. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to do is work on the Mr. Dragon. So for this one, I'm going to want him to be above the moon. Now, could I fold it further down and have him slide below the moon? Absolutely you can. You just have to fold lower down so that this piece is not showing. But I want him to fly above. So he needs a fold about right here. So one fold. And because I used double foam tape, I'm going to fold it 2 times to kind of square it up so that it comes up and over. Okay, and yes, I use scratch paper. Can't waste paper. All right, so that's up and over, and I'm going to turn it on the side so you can visually see how that works. See how it's up and over? So now if this was a little small image or whatever, and you would have stuff showing, you can cut this down, you can snip it off. So because I want him up here, you can see all this is going to be extra. So I can cut it now, I can cut it later. I think I'll go ahead and just, because I want him to run over the edge and not above the edge and get caught, I'm going to just cut it just a little bit below the moon. So let's go to the lowest spot of the moon, which is here. Go to the highest spot. I'm going to cut it right there for now. Okay, so now I want some really good hefty adhesive because I know my daughter is going to be racing this rocket across the sky 1,000 times. I can go ahead and glue that on there. There we go. And now we've got him racing across the sky. Okay, so we'll let that dry for a minute. And in the meantime, while it's drying, I'll go ahead and put this portion on it, straight hopefully. Straight enough. Okay, so now we've got this pull part. Now with the stamp set, the one I did on the prior card, I actually used cardstock instead of the glossy part to match. I stamped the stars on it, and you could put a sentiment on here. So if you didn't want to put the sentiment on the top, you could just put it right in here. But for this, I put out of the world. You are out of this world on the front of the card. So I also colored the moon twice and just used a portion up at the top. So you can see from the side here, I used single layers on this one. I also used a little bit of a rocket in the background, so it kind of popped out there, whoop, as you slide by. This one I wanted to keep just a little bit more simple, just so you got the idea on how to use the Kinetic Dies. So again, we use the Kinetic Curved Basic Die Set and the No-See Kinetic Basic Die Set with this card. And you can go ahead and at some point just stamp a sentiment here. This set comes with a whole bunch of cool ones. It says Space Case, and I could put that right here in the corner. It also has a whole bunch of different aliens. I could put them sitting on the moon. We've got Love You to the Moon and Back, Extraterrestrial, You're Out of This World, Have a Blast on Your Special Day. So many options. You can, instead of using the Space Dragon, that's a separate rubber stamp, you could use one of these UFOs just sliding across the sky. So remember, you could take him, and if you wanted to do him in front of the card, you would just take this portion and you would fold it further down. So now he would be flying across the front. But remember, you want to make sure that it covers, because of the curve, that it will pass by the whole area before assembling the whole card. So the straight kinetics work the exact same way. Okay, so really the part that is extra special would be that No-See Kinetic Basic Die Set, and that runs $12.99, and you can use it with all the Kinetic sets. Okay, so that would be it for this one. I hope you enjoyed and have fun creating your own little masterpieces and making things move without seeing all the mechanisms. Have a good one.